Welcome to educational video series, where we'll be covering common Forex terminology and trading concepts. An informed trader is a better trader. So take the time to learn before you make your first trade. Let's get started. In this video, we explain what pivot points are and how they are used in Forex trading. A pivot point is a technical analysis indicator used to determine price direction and the overall trend of the market. Pivot points are important price action levels that are used to highlight potential support and resistance, and spot turning points. Looking at pivot points, we can determine the market's bias on any given time frame. If price action is above the pivot line, it's indicating bullish bias. If it is below, it's indicating bearish bias. By itself, a pivot point is simply the average of the high, low, and closing prices from the previous trading day. This is how the current period's support and resistance levels are calculated. These levels consist of a pivot point level, two support levels, S1 and S2, and two resistance levels, R1 and R2. Most trading platforms automatically calculate the levels for you, so you don't have to do the formulas yourself. However, understanding how they are calculated can be useful. As mentioned earlier, the pivot point is the average of the high, low, and close of the previous period. To calculate it, simply take the sum of the high, the low, and the close and divide that by 3. Support level 1 or S1 is calculated by doubling the pivot level and subtracting the high from the previous day. Support level 2 or S2 is calculated by taking the difference of the high and the low from the previous day and subtracting it from the pivot level. Similarly, resistance level 1 or R1 is calculated by doubling the pivot level and subtracting the low from the previous day. Resistance level 2 or R2 is calculated by taking the difference between the high and the low from the previous day and adding it to the pivot level. Pivot points are important support and resistance levels. When price action crosses above a pivot point, R1 becomes the overhead resistance, and the pivot point becomes support. When R1 is broken, R2 becomes overhead resistance and R1 becomes support. Similarly, when price action crosses below the pivot point, S1 becomes support and the pivot point provides resistance. When S1 is broken, S2 becomes support and S1 provides resistance. Pivot points can be used to determine potential levels of support and resistance as well as price direction. They can hence be used to identify both reversal points and breakouts. Pivot points always act as a secondary indicator to price action and are therefore best used in conjunction with other indicators, which you'll learn about in upcoming videos. Keep watching and keep learning.